Good morning, good people of a great nation. It's a pleasure to welcome you to the fresh edition of Development Focus with Jide on ITV. Today, 29th of June, 2022. Again, I hope you are up to a good start of the day. This morning, as I said when we opened studio at 7, I did say that we want to be, in our discussion this morning, we want to be looking at the developing stories in our judiciary, particularly at the apex court. Supreme Court in the recent past has been in the eye of the storm. With certain judgments, it has delivered from the judgment on hijab, the use of hijab in Lagos schools, which he endorsed, which has also sparked off a reaction by a senior judge, a chief from Delta State, who decided to rule to the court in native doctor attire, saying that he is within his fundamental right to dress the way he likes. In fact, as at yesterday, 2 cases he brought before a Lagos High Court was stepped down, because the defendant said he was not properly robed. That was a reaction to the Supreme Court judgment on the use of hijab in Lagos schools. Then we also have the issue of the judgment on Section 84, subsection 12 of the Electoral 2022, which also came last Friday. That has also set tongues wagging as to the implications and all of that. But the one that is most controversial was the allegation of malfeasance and corruption leveled against the immediate past Chief Justice of Nigeria, Justice Ibrahim Tanko Muhammad, by his brother justices. 40 of them wrote a petition, which was made public last week, accusing him that he's not prioritized their welfare. Anyway, enough said. I brought a legal luminary who is also an activist, a writer, a columnist, everything rolled into one. I brought my senior brother, Elder Sam Kagbo Esquire. Good morning, sir.
Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure. So let's have an overview in recent development in Nigeria's judiciary. What's your take? Which way Nigeria with Nigeria judiciary?
I think the way is always forward. But just like you said, I think we've been having talking points from the judiciary, and like you said, the topmost of it is the resignation of the Chief Justice of Nigeria on account of ill health. That's what he said.
Is that an alibi?
I would give him the benefit of the doubt.
You don't want to stick it. He said he's not feeling well.
He's not feeling well.
And we have had a pope that resigned on account of, Benedict XVI, I think.
Let me start with the positives of it, which is to say that for the very first time in a long while, we are having somebody who is resigning when he ought to resign. Irrespective of the reasons.
The motive.
Yeah, but the fact that he resigned is also some positives in the polity and in the overall management of public systems. Ordinarily, within this climate, we would have had foot soldiers, and very many of them. You could even see the first reaction that came from the staff, because I would say so, reading the letter they wrote, the quality of the grammar, the entirety of the letter itself, one knew that couldn't have come from him, and the posterior was that of the usual denials and excuses and all of that. But I think the intervention of the body of benchers and some other stakeholders might have influenced the decision for him to step aside, resign, and allow things be. It's really disheartening. The displeasure here is not so much as about the person of the former CJ, I won't do that. I won't go into it here. But rather, I would want us to reflect on the judiciary as a whole and see whether we've actually treated that organ of government fairly. I do not think so. For us to have waited things to go to the, that far, to the point of all of the justices, with the exception of course, the CGN, breaching protocol, because that's not their style. They are hardly had. Most of their grievances are more or less espoused and resolved diplomatically. But for them to have gone the way they went, it's an indication that they've had it. They've had it, and that I think that was what you would call the boiling point, you know, and that is worrisome. The letter, even though it speaks to the CJN, to me, it was speaking to all of us. It was speaking to the other organs of government to say, hey, this is us. When put against the other organs of government, there is a far cry, the gap. It's like a gulf, which is to say that, like they are saying, they say, hey, we write our judgment in sweatshops. We don't have electricity at home. We don't have internet at home. We don't have the opportunity to go for trainings. Our welfare is not taken care of. Our health is not taken care of. And yet, look at the burden on us. That's a court that is supposed to have 21 justices, reduced to 15. And up to today, you've had over 1 year the process of recruiting some other justices from the Court of Appeal to join them at the Supreme Court to make up the number so that it will reduce the workload. If you go today, if you check, you make a checklist of the cases they've handled, the matters they've handled within this year alone, you'll find out that they are well over 1,000. Spread it out to 14 elderly people. You can imagine the sort of burden they've had to carry.
But sir,
yes.
Let's calibrate this.
Okay.
The judiciary,
yes,
at least at the national or federal level, is on first line charge of consolidated revenue fund. And I even read that this morning that the CJN is going on with 2.5 billion severance package. You cannot say that is lack of money that is afflicting the judiciary. That is one. Two, the president, is it that he could not find credible, eminent jurists from the bench and the bar to make the maximum number of 21, or the political will is just not there to ensure that the Supreme Court is well resourced?
I think the political will is not there. You could find 1,000,001, if I'm to use that word, who are capable of doing a good job at the Supreme Court. What does it really take by the rules? You need just a minimum of 10 years post-court for you to be qualified to be a judge. And if you're a judge, that means you could be a judge of any of the cadre of the 3 court systems that we have, you know. But that is not the point. You talked about something which I think we need to discuss. When you say a first line charge, how much percentage of it that goes there? What you are saying is that the money that you are entitled to goes to you directly. So the question we should ask, what is that money
The envelope, you mean?
Yeah,
the size
yeah. So what is it? So if I'm entitled to 10,000 and you say that 10,000 goes to me directly, and it gives the impression that because the 10,000 goes to me directly, I'm comfortable, you are missing the point. The point is how much of the money that goes to the federation account that comes to me.
Okay.
That's what should be addressing.
Would you said the brother justices broke protocol to have written to the CJ and NJC over issue of their welfare?
No, they didn't write to the NJC. Perhaps I used the wrong word. What I mean is the norm.
So they should have discussed it orally rather than formalizing it in a memo.
If I say they should have, you are making me to indict them. No, what I'm saying, for them to break the norm, it means that they've gotten to a point where they could no longer handle it.
You believe, sir,
Yeah.
you believe that maybe they've been discussing this at meetings, and
and
nothing was done.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Okay.
They must have been pushed to the wall. They must have been under unbearable circumstances to the point that they say, hey, we either do this or we don't survive.
Okay, I agree with you, but
Yes.
let's look at it this way.
Yeah.
Is the Chief Justice of Nigeria the Chief Accounting Officer of the Supreme Court?
The Chief Registrar.
So why was that letter not directed to the Chief Registrar? Who is the Chief Accounting Officer? Because I read the response of the CJ where he said, look, is the Chief Registrar that budgeted for fuel, and maybe he used 300 naira per liter, and then the price of diesel have gone to 700. The issue of accommodation, that many of them have accommodation, but only the few that have yet to get, they are working on it. The issue of operational vehicles, that all of them have SUVs and all of that. Do you think that was a solid defense from CJ?
You know, there are some questions that can open what you call the Pandora's box. So let's try not to answer those questions. Let's get to the comfortable points here. The CJ wears two caps. He's a justice, and in that capacity, he's first among equals. He is just like any other justice. So
he just occupies that position as a result of seniority, isn't it?
No. I'm just saying the Chief Justice of Nigeria, he has two hats.
Yes.
The one hat is that of a justice of the Supreme Court, because you must be a justice of the Supreme Court. Once you are appointed, even from without, the moment you are appointed as a Chief Justice of Nigeria, you become a justice of the Supreme Court.
Okay.
Yeah. The law does not really say that you must come from within the Supreme Court for you to be the Chief Justice of Nigeria.
Oh, I even learned that a senior advocate of Nigeria could be appointed as a Supreme Court justice.
Definitely, that's what I'm saying.
So you don't even have to have prior knowledge of being in the bench for you to get to the Supreme Court as a justice.
Technically, yes.
Have we had precedent like that before?
Elias came directly from
the bar.
Yeah.
Okay.
Came directly from you to go to.
But has it happened that a former CJ resigning for whatever reason? Has it ever happened?
I don't have that history. But in recent time, no.
Okay.
All of them
so let's come back to the issue of accountability.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So let me, so that I should read the letter in the second hat. The first hat, like I said, is a justice of the Supreme Court. The second hat is the administrative head.
Okay.
That is administration. So there he is doing some form of executive functions, and in that capacity, he is supposed to oversee the entire staff of the Supreme Court, and therefore the buck, you would say, will stop with him, because he is the person that is supposed to be responsible for what all other under him would do. And also in that capacity, he is also the link between the Supreme Court and the outside world. He is also the link between the Supreme Court and the other arms of government. So those functions are themselves cause for a lot. And what they might be questioning is his creativity and ability to use that office to garner or attract the benefits that they ought to have, because they individually or collectively cannot bypass the office of the Chief Justice of Nigeria to go and make a case. So perhaps they might have been tabling these issues with him. And also, if you check the letter, there is also the point they made that that sort of relationship or opportunity through meetings for them to discuss these things wasn't there. It was like, I wouldn't use the word say he was insular, but rather they say he wasn't doing what others were doing. Because usually when you carry people along in leadership, it helps a lot, because they would give their input and help you to navigate your storms. But when you think you can do it alone and yet things are not being done well, of course you further exacerbate the frustrations which they have pointed out in the letter.
Okay, so Sam Kagbo.
Yes.
There are insinuations that the CJN used family members and cronies, surrounded himself with them in performing some of those administrative functions, possibly within the purview of the Chief Registrar of Nigeria. How true is that?
Like I am saying, there are some questions that we shouldn't really answer. In any case, we would have the opportunity of getting all of these answers, because the Senate has.
They
said they were going to
set up because and
the Ogbeyemi that I know, he was my classmate and friend, is a very thorough person. They will do a good job, and I don't want to preempt things, but I would also think that the probe, I don't know why they use it probe rather than investigation, because probe is more tended to be more accusatory, you understand, but it's their game, so they can use whatever appellation or terminology to do their job. But I would think that they would also go into these things that would help them to fashion out a system that will prevent conflict of interest, that will also prevent the prevent a situation whereby the attention would be deflected from the accounting officer, who is the chief registrar, to the CJ. If a system is well structured and duties are well outlined, then we wouldn't be having this.
Okay, so let's look at the issue of corruption in judiciary as a whole. This you are saying the envelope or the share of the federation account that comes to the judiciary perhaps is very, very little compared to other arms of government.
True.
Does this have tendency to promote corruption in the judiciary? Because we've also had some of the brother justices saying there's corruption amongst us. There are billionaire judges. How are judges supposed to be billionaires if what they have, from what I read, the annual salary of a judge is 3.3 36 million. That's the basic salary anyway. Without the housing,
what you call the packages of
the pecs.
Yeah.
So does the poor funding, as you want to put it, of judiciary? Is it making them to go the way of corruption? I will pause you on that. Let's go on a short break, and you have the opportunity to answer that. Yeah. Okay, thanks for staying tuned to us. We needed to make some money. That was why we have to go on that short commercial break. We have also joining us on this mouthful discussion of the U.S. Supreme Court and, by extension, the judiciary. Another learned friend and brother, Stanley Aleke Esquire. You're welcome.
Thank you very much, sir.
Okay. So let me allow Senior to land on the question I posed to him. Then we will come to Stanley.
Let me start with my usual defense. Corruption, as I define it, really, if I'm to read the three arms of government, I would say the judiciary is by far the most pious and less corrupt.
The most pious?
Yes.
I used to have a classmate called Pious Christian.
Yeah, and less corrupt, and most police, and most regulated. Yes. But let me get back to what I was saying. Yeah. I coming back to your question, I wouldn't want to go the moral lane. Rather, I would want to talk like what the sociologists would say. I had a discussion with, I hope you would allow me say the name, Comrade Adamson Shomal. I said, we were discussing about this same issue about corruption in the judiciary. He said, listen, my own understanding of it is that corruption, for it to be attended to functionally and effectively, is for you to remove the functionaries of the judiciary from that pool of want. If somebody is in want, in need, to the point of that decision, you either get it or you don't live. He gave an example, assuming you have all your children at home. You couldn't pay their school fees. Your wife is sick. You are sick. You don't have money. You don't have a place to go and get a loan. And that devil comes to say, I can do this for you and get your children back to school and get your wife to the hospital and get you healed and all of that. Assuming that devil is a politician, that you are not supposed to have financial dealings with, but he had come in the guise of an angel to save you from that one. Are you going to say, for my integrity and for my honor, I won't accept his assistance? You won't be an average human being if you take that decision.
Okay, I like your analogy, but let me ask my learned friend Stanley, what's your take? Because we need to round off on this CJN resignation and the corruption allegation and all of that, because there are still a couple of issues I want us to. The issue of Section 84(12) of the Electoral Acts, the judgment, what's the implication? Then the issue of hijab. Then even there is a story I read yesterday that the CJN that resigned on health ground, the one that was sworn in acting capacity is allegedly also healed. The one that is next to him is also sick. So is it sick people's home that we have?
No, it's the office there, that institution that is ruining them. It is not the age.
Okay, let me allow Stanley to come in. Stanley, your overview of the CGN resignation, the allegation of corruption, and what do you make of all of this potpourri of issues?
No doubt what my learned senior already said, that the judiciary is the most pious, because you know how all the arms of government is being run in Nigeria. But it shouldn't be heard of. That's why when that letter was circulating, although some of them said it was meant to be an internal memo, so it was mischief makers that leaked that letter to the general public. So you can imagine what it takes, or what it took for 14 justices. So
Stanley, you are making your point, your own view of what happened in the last week.
So the whole thing was quite should never be heard of. If I hear that as a lawyer that there is corruption in the executive or the legislature, it won't bug me that much. But for me to hear that 14 justices, I'm wondering what it took for them to come and make that. They were actually trying to be so diplomatic, saying something to the CJN that they don't want to say. They were before then they actually wrote a letter. I was reading last night that they wrote a letter to the presidency saying that they analyzed or highlighted the financial ill dealings of the CJN is on public record. I read it on cable that if the presidency cannot force the CJN to resign, that they will stop sitting by September.
Oh, yes. It has gotten to that.
It has gotten to that. So that's what happened. What actually happened, though, they actually to cover it up that the CJN resigned on health issue. But what actually happened is the presidency or power that be has to force him, because it got to this extent that it became embarrassing. Now they have to meet some of the points they made, that epileptic power supply, that the CJN will travel with his staff's family members and they will not go for the annual leave. And some of the, in fact, when you hear the judgment of justices, it was quite poetic when they were in the letter, in the memo, when they are saying that if it continues like this, the judiciary will go in extinction, and they say, God forbid, may that day never come. So you should know that it actually hooked them to the extent for them to actually raise an alarm. But the issue is, there is actually a corruption in the judicial sector, but it's not as this pronounced. We know that some of them try to falsify age, some of them, in fact, this new CJN, the acting CJN that have been just been appointed, the people have actually dug up something that how can you said you were born in 1958 and a year later you said you primary school 1959. So
but that has been countered yesterday, that he actually was born 1954, and that yes, he started primary school in 1959. But again, if he has shown an affidavit, I think for a judicial officer, you will be shooting yourself in the foot if you have in your CV that you are born in 1958 and started primary education in 1959.
It should not be heard of that a judicial officer, I mean, of that caliber.
You see, what I would want us to avoid is, let's don't go into those, what would I call it now? I don't want to be disrespectful, but the word is coming. Let's don't play this truth game.
Okay.
Let's allow those who are responsible to do the, well, you call it fact check, but I would call it reality check. Hey, the intelligence system that we have here, they're smart. If you want to dig you up, they will. So let's just
what do you think is the role of NJC in all of this brewing crisis in the Supreme Court? What should have NJC done? Because now the legislative has set up a committee. Should NJC not have also similarly set up a committee before now?
No, the NJC can't be that proactive. Mind you, they meet just ad hocly when needs arise. It's not like a body employed sitting down there to do. These are people who had their various jobs, including the CJN himself, other administrative heads of the Federation and all of that. Usually when they have all these complaints, the complaints are analyzed, scrutinized, and what would I call it now? Diarized and given to them. They will now come, sit over them, and it's from there that they now make their own investigation and perhaps now arrive at their decisions. So if they are now, if you now want to add to them, if you now want to add to them investigative responsibility outside that, that would be giving them too much to handle.
Okay, let's move away slightly, because we still need to set agenda for the incoming CJN. But that's the landing point.
Yes.
Let's quickly go. Stanley, what's your take on the Supreme Court judgment on hijab, approving hijab for Lagos schools, and the ripple effect of that when Chief Malcolm decided to come to Abuja Supreme Court in native doctor attire. Yesterday, he also appeared in similar attire to plead the case in 2 cases in Lagos, and he was challenged by his
some colleagues
that he is not properly ruled. So, what's your take? Is this a controversial decision from Supreme Court?
Now, when it comes to matters like this, that is religiously sentimental, people are mostly careful not to know what to say or what not to say, because Nigerians they hold this religion thing too delicate or too precious. So that what actually happened is it actually originated from, I think, a secondary school or a primary school in Lagos State.
Yes.
And the case got to Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court said, look, every Nigerian have the fundamental human right to religion. Asking a Muslim girl or a Muslim lady not to wear hijab is a deprivation of that right. Now, that is a peripheral of how that judgment actually went to. I wouldn't want to go into deeper than. But the truth is, you know, that's not. I think, remember in 2017 or 2018, someone, a lawyer or a law school student that was about to be sworn in to be called to bar, was actually, I know how that case went. I've forgotten her name because of that hijab thing. Although she was, because he's
that's at the Nigerian law school.
Yes, at the during the court to bar ceremony, not even at the day of the court to bar, at the procession, as you're walking in, they have to bounce out that, look, this is not part of the prescribed dress code. You cannot wear hijab. Now, this, I've been of the one that said, you see, secular things and religion should not meet. If you, this judgment, what the protest or the activism that this lawyer have been launching
Chief
is,
Malcolm.
yes, he said, what goes to Peter goes for Paul too. If you said a Muslim lady should wear hijab, fine, then he should, I as a lawyer, or he as a lawyer should, what he is intentional in is someone that I'm kind of close to. He said the plan is to actually want a judge to work him out, or to judge to, so that he will have a case to lodge a or file a motion properly to say that, so that yes, that the Supreme Court, yes, that you discriminated against me. The apex court said my right to religion is sacrosanct. So why you say that I don't have right of appearance? Because, and some of the judges have been careful. I remember yesterday I saw the video circulating that some of the lawyers was even raising a door saying you cannot appear this way. I'm a friend of the court, or one said I'm a Mr. Inquiry or something. And the judge was careful not to say something, because he knows who is a like compared to, I mean, to the caliber of the Supreme Court or the Supreme Court justices. But we should actually lay a line. To me, that judgment was actually a fundamental departure of what the Constitution is saying.
Okay, let's pause at that because time constraint. The section 12, section 84, 12, Sankago, what's your take? The judgment came last Friday. Now, this judgment has ripple effect that you, as a political appointee, should not be a voting member at the primary, or even before stand for election without having resigned your position. And I don't know what your interpretation of that section 84:12 as given by Supreme Court. What actually is the import of that? Because primaries are over anyway.
No, the Supreme Court has not decided that aspect of it. The Supreme Court did not decide the merit.
The merit of the case.
It was actually the adjectival part of it, the procedural part of it.
Yeah.
That is the people who brought the matter, did they have the locus? The court said
that was the president and the
yeah,
attorney general.
yeah, because
they don't have locus. Do you agree with the Supreme Court that attorney general of a federation does not have locus to bring?
That's not. I mean, if I should come, that's not what the Supreme Court said. The Supreme Court, what the court was saying is, you participated in the in this lawmaking process. The president, you are the ones, you are sentenced to this bill with the help of the attorney general. You cannot approbate and reprobate. It does not. It does not happen this way. You cannot. I, as a member, or I cannot assent to something and come out again and say, come to the Supreme Court and say the Supreme Court should declare it illegality. So why must you get involved in the pro-illegality? You know, that was what the Supreme Court was actually saying.
I do not think that issue went to the Supreme Court because usually the ratio is the issue you resolve. What was taken before you. Mind you, the parties, before you could get your case attended to or the issues that you take to the court, they must have a direct link to your course of action, which is either your injury or the right you want to espouse. If you are not connected to this in any of the way, you are more or less going on an academic exercise, and the court will not allow itself to be turned into a university.
But let's make the best of the limited time we have left.
Yes.
What is the import of that judgment? On the
as at now, the law is what it is.
That section
412 states,
and that any party that didn't abide by that provision,
yes,
in the course of conducting the primaries,
yes,
may have run foul of that provision.
Yes, but you see, this is the way the law works. Even if they did, it is the person who will be injured, the person who would be aggrieved. For example, if you and I went into primaries and you were a political appointee
and you didn't
resign, I'll make it a case. I will go to court and ask the question, by virtue of this section, were you qualified to have participated in that primary? That's the question I'm going to ask. And I'm going to ask the relief that by virtue of that, you should be declared what? Unqualified to participate in that particular primary. That's the way it works. I have seen some interpretations, some people more or less thinking that those provisions as they are self-executory, to the point that you have what would you call an INEC officer saying that, oh no, you cannot submit your candidates because what, your primary did not fulfill this. You can't do that. You cannot. You understand? So this is the way the world works. For now, luckily, I do not think there was any of the parties who took that risk. They did not.
Because you see, Stanley, let's backtrack a little. This whole issue started in Uma here, when Justice Anyadike gave a ruling that the Attorney General should even go and delete that section 8412.
These are two different cases.
No, I know. But it went to Court of Appeal, and the Court of Appeal seems to, even though the Court of Appeal also did not discuss the merit, he said, but if it were to come to it, this is what that is unconstitutional and none of that and all of that. Before it went to Supreme Court. So what do we make of all of this?
Well, I say it's actually kind of peculiar to me, because the appeal, I was the one that traveled to Abia, Omaya, to file for the appeal, because I was with the National Assembly lawyer, Dr. Kayode Ajilo. Okay. So, but this particular clause have been so controversial, and it is the way raising political dust, just to show you that when a law is made and it offends a particular set of Nigeria, which is the political class or those, they will find a way to actually, I mean, the day that the president, in February, when the president was assenting this bill, he made some comment that is uncomfortable with it, asking the National Assembly to delete it. Now, if the National Assembly, if they have heeded to what the president was saying and deleted that session, it raises a question of how independent the legislature is, or how influential, or how much influence does the president waste?
Okay, I've been told that our time is it's almost.
Yeah.
So, agenda setting for the Kayode Ariwola CJN, acting CJN. What will you say should be his focus during his tenure? That's if he gets eventually confirmed by the Senate.
His job has been made for him. He was among the people who wrote that letter.
Yes. So now he has opportunity to revise the chair.
So to me, I think we can patronize him. Let him do his job. But I would also want to have this. I would hope that there would be a CJN who would put out himself to actually forge a relationship between the bench and the bar. This sort of gulf between the bench and the bar, it's not helping issues, because if for anything we are out there, we are actually the foot runners of the profession, and we should be part and parcel of the key decision making.
But the NBA is always part of the. NBA is part of NJC, isn't it?
Yes.
Peripherally.
No, how you
okay, so let's quickly bring you in, Stanley. Your thought, agenda setting for the new CJ.
Is just like he said, he already know what he should do. He is part of those that read later. So he knows,
it's part of
he knows what they complain that have been eating deep into the that wants to, according to their words, according to their phrase, that wants to make the judiciary to go into extinction. So he's one of those, one of the signatories. He knows how to, if he's subsequently appointed or submitted, confirmed by the Senate to be the CGN, he should know where that one of the things they complain, they need power, more constant power supply, they need change of vehicles, they need more money, they need especially the epileptic power supply that all of them were talking about.
Their salaries have not been increased for over a decade.
So you are also calling for increase in the
definitely. You cannot have a justice of the Supreme Court earning less than $2,000 a month.
I think
that is scandalous.
I beg to differ on this in this instance. When you talk of basic salary, these people go home with allowances. I know a salary could just be 100,000 naira or 1 million naira, but when the accumulative allowances, these people
my dear learned brother, tell me if any of those
before
the totality.
Before they chase us out of the studio, my producer said time up. Okay, but it's a very interesting discussion we've had this morning. We'll be looking at the CJ's resignation, matters arising, the Supreme Court decisions in recent past. In the last 1 week, actually, and my two guests have done justice, I believe. I brought a senior and a junior together. Of course, the two lawyers will always differ even on the issue of law. Thank you very much, Stanley Eke, Stanley Aleke, Esquire, and Sam Kago, Esquire.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for coming on the show. That will be the size of our show this morning. Stay tuned for next edition on Wednesday next week.